My first million didn't start with a genius idea, nor with a viral business or an investor discovering me. It started on a quiet day at home when I opened my bank statement and saw that I was in the red again. In that moment, I didn't feel anger or despair. I felt something far more dangerous. I had gotten used to it. I was normalizing living with little, normalizing improvising, normalizing feeling incapable of growing. And that's when it hit me. If my mind accepts scarcity as normal, it will never be able to sustain abundance. That day, I wrote 3 sentences on a piece of paper. I need to change my mental pattern. I need to see myself differently. I need to act like someone who deserves more, now. These 3 sentences became 3 daily practices, and those practices reprogrammed what I saw as possible. A few months later, my first million happened. But the most important part, it came to a mind that was already prepared. Today, I'm going to show you the 3 simple steps I use to reprogram my brain and become someone who naturally attracts money. This is not book theory. It's practice. Lived. Tested. Step 1. I rewrote the story I used to tell about myself. You can have the best plan in the world, but if your mind is wired just to survive, it will sabotage any attempt to thrive. And for a long time, the story I told myself was exactly that. I work hard, but I'm never lucky. I earn money, but I always lose it later. Money isn't for me. These phrases were never said out loud, but they were whispered in my head every single day. And my behavior followed those narratives like they were invisible commands. That's how scarcity sneaks in. Like a silent script you don't even realize you're following. That's why the first step in my reprogramming had nothing to do with money itself. It had everything to do with the story I kept feeding. One night, tired and frustrated, I sat on the floor with an old notebook. I wrote raw and unfiltered, everything I believed about myself and about money. No sugarcoating, no masks. Things like, there's never anything left. Every time money comes in, something goes wrong. But I can't picture myself being rich. I wasn't born for this. Wealthy people have connections. I don't. And when I finished, I read it all out loud. It felt like listening to someone I'd never let give me life advice. That version of me wasn't trustworthy. And if I wanted to change my reality, I had to silence that version and write a new one. I grabbed another piece of paper and wrote a new narrative. Not as a wish, but as a declaration. I am a woman who creates real value. Money flows to me because I'm ready to manage it. I act with awareness, focus, and responsibility. Well, I deserve to grow, without guilt. My story with money is changing now. In the days that followed, that new narrative became a daily practice. I'd wake up, take a deep breath, and read it out loud. Even when everything around me seemed to prove the opposite. Even when I felt like a fraud. But you know what happened? After 20, 30, 40 repetitions, something inside me began to shift. It wasn't magic. It was neuroscience. The brain, when exposed repeatedly to a new idea, starts forming connections. And the more you reinforce those connections, the stronger they become. Until suddenly, what once felt strange becomes familiar, and what seemed impossible starts to feel within reach. That's how it begins. You change what you think, which changes how you feel, which changes how you act, which changes what you attract. This step is the foundation. Without it, you might still make money, but you'll keep seeing yourself as someone who just got lucky. And you'll find a way, consciously or not, to lose it all again. Want to apply this now? Grab a piece of paper and write down everything you believe about yourself and about money. No censorship. Read it. Feel the impact. See where those phrases came from. Then write a new version. Clear, assertive, active. Repeat this new narrative every day for 21 days. Out loud. Yes, it sounds simple. But don't underestimate the power of a brain hearing your own voice say, I am a woman who creates wealth. Because if your mind isn't aligned with the life you want, it will sabotage your path just to stay in the safe zone of what's familiar, even if that's scarcity. Step 2, I started acting like someone who already had money, even without it. This step might sound bold, but it was the turning point. After rewriting my inner narrative, I realized something important. If I kept behaving like someone who was still trying, my brain would never allow me to become someone who had already made it. Because the brain needs coherence. If you say one thing but act like it's not true, it creates conflict. And do you know what it does? It goes back to the old pattern. Because the old one feels safe, even if it keeps you stuck. That's when I started asking myself a daily question. How would the woman who already has what I want act today? That question made me change everything. I didn't need to move houses or change jobs. But I changed my posture, my schedule, my speech, my energy. I started waking up earlier. Not because I became some productivity guru, but because I realized the millionaire woman inside me had control over her own day. And I needed to prove that to myself before proving it to anyone else. At first, it felt like I was acting, but it wasn't fake. It was rehearsal. And rehearsing is honoring the version of yourself you want to become. I started organizing my space like it was a real company, even if it was just my laptop on the living room table. I managed my calendar like I had meetings with important people, even if those appointments were with myself. And most importantly, I started making financial decisions like someone who values their own money. That didn't mean going out and spending to look rich. It meant the opposite. I stopped buying things just to fill emotional gaps. I started investing in training, content, people, and experiences that elevated me. I began saying no to invitations that drained my time and energy because I understood that time is a financial asset. One of the most defining moments was when I turned down a project that paid well, but put me back in the role of the one who does everything for too little. Saying no hurt, but it was liberating, because in that decision, my brain learned, this woman doesn't settle for less than she's worth. Want to start acting like someone who already has money, even before you do? Here are 3 behaviors that helped me. Organize your routine like a CEO would, with clarity, with structure, with respect for your own time. Dress with intention, not in a rush, even at home, even if no one's watching. The way you present yourself to yourself defines how you'll show up in the world. Choose your words consciously. Stop saying you're broke, chasing it, buried in bills. Start speaking with the confidence of someone preparing to manage millions, not just to pay off debt. And one last tip, walk into rooms with the energy of someone who belongs, not someone asking for permission. That changes your posture. It changes your tone of voice. It changes the way the world sees you. You don't need to fake wealth. You need to live with dignity, direction, and discernment. Now. That's how I started being treated like a serious professional. That's how better opportunities came. And that's how one day, when the first million came in, I thought, finally, the world is seeing who I've been all along. Step 3. I train my brain to sustain abundance without self-sabotage. Most people think the hard part is making money, but the real challenge is holding on to it once it arrives. Because if your mind has been programmed your whole life to deal with lack, abundance feels scary, uncomfortable, like a foreign body. And without realizing it, you start to sabotage it. In my case, the pattern was clear. Every time things started going well, I'd do something impulsive. Overspend. Take on draining commitments. Or freeze. Paralyzed by fear of messing everything up. My brain was trying to protect me, but it was using scarcity as its safe zone. That's when I understood. The mind needs training not just to chase wealth, but to handle it. So what did I do? I started teaching my brain, day after day, to normalize the good. And that's harder than it sounds. Because if you've spent your life getting used to just enough, anything beyond that can trigger guilt, doubt, and a feeling of unworthiness. And to break that, I had to practice 3 things. 1. Celebrate what I used to consider small before. I only celebrated big wins. Now I celebrate every sign of growth. A well-negotiated deal. A week where I stuck to my routine with discipline. A mature decision, even if it didn't bring immediate results. Celebrating is telling your brain, this is welcome here. And the more you validate that internally, the more your nervous system stops reacting with fear and starts operating from stability. 2. Maintain high standards even without an audience. A lot of people only get organized when something's at stake. Only get dressed up to go out. Only deliver their best when someone's watching. But to reprogram your mind for abundance, you need to hold your standard even when no one's looking. That's when I made a radical decision. Everything I did, I would do it well. Cleaning the house, writing an email, eating, getting dressed, working alone. That quiet consistency taught my brain that I was trustworthy. And that yes, I could manage more. Because I was already taking good care of the little I had. To anchor my identity in a higher version of myself. Every day, for 5 minutes, I'd visualize a scene. Me walking into a room, with presence, posture, calm. Speaking clearly, deciding confidently, handling my money with ease and discernment. It was the most prosperous version of me, and I'd repeat to myself, this is who I am. Even if I'm still on my way there. Over time, it stopped being a distant projection. It became a reference. And a reference becomes behavior. And behavior becomes reality. When my first million arrived, I wasn't surprised. I felt ready, because my mind already knew how to handle abundance. It had already learned not to run, not to sabotage, not to doubt. The money simply confirmed what I already believed was possible. Want to apply this 3rd step to your routine? Create daily rituals that signal abundance, from how you set up your desk to how you celebrate a goal achieved. Choose an image of your most prosperous self and anchor your routine to that reference. Notice when fear shows up, and reinforce, I can handle the best. I deserve stability. I sustain growth. Because in the end, what you sustain is what multiplies. And if your mind isn't ready to hold what you dream of, it'll send you back to square one, again and again. The truth is simple. Before the money arrived, my mind was already prepared to receive it. And that didn't happen by luck. It happened because I made conscious decisions. I rewrote the story I used to tell about myself. I started acting like I already had it, even before I did. I trained my brain to sustain abundance without running from it. None of these steps require $1,000. None require status, a title, fame, or networking. They only require one choice: to stop operating on the frequency of survival and start building an identity that holds prosperity. Your first million can come in 1,000 different ways, but it will only stay if you have a mind trained to respect, direct, and multiply what comes. You don't need to wait for anything to change, because the change starts within, and the world responds to the frequency you hold. If this video brought you clarity, drop a comment below. Which of the 3 steps will you apply first? And if you want to keep going on this journey of internal transformation with practical, direct content, no empty promises, you know what to do. Stick around. Because your new reality already exists. It's just waiting for you to become the person who can hold it.